Since Arsenal women are restarting their season on Sunday after a 3.5-week break in the end due to the postponement of the Brighton match just before Christmas, thought I'd just do a little video basically about what the second half of the season really holds for Arsenal, ambitions, what we might see perhaps in the January transfer window and what we might see on the pitch. But the first thing I'm going to address is Jonas Eidevall's press conference, which happened on Friday afternoon and was quite eventful. First off, I asked Jonas about January transfer plans, and he said that Arsenal definitely have ambitions to be active in the January transfer window. You'll recall that Anna Patten has already gone out on loan to Aston Villa, and Jonas talked about this a little bit as well. He said that the chance for her to play centre-half there was a big driving factor behind that move. She's been playing at right-back for Arsenal due to the amount of centre-halves that Arsenal have on their books, so she's gone out on loan. It does potentially leave Arsenal a little bit short in defence. Now, obviously, Jonas would not be drawn on specific transfer plans or players as much as I tried, but my understanding is very much that a central defender will come in during January and that maybe we'll hear news about that quite soon. I think that's quite close to being done, just a little bit of paperwork. I also asked him about Stina Blackstenius, the Swedish forward, who's also been linked with Arsenal. Among other clubs, she's been linked with Manchester United as well. Her contract with Häcken in Sweden has expired, and it looks like she's looking for the next step in her career, and it looks like that will be in the WSL. Again, Jonas wouldn't be drawn when I mentioned the name to him, which you'd expect. But again, my understanding is that Arsenal are interested. I don't know much more than that at the moment. I can't say that that's a done deal or anything. I don't think it is, but I think that they're interested from what I'm hearing. So there's a couple of things in the air there about January. But other quite interesting thing that Jonas was talking about was postponements. Obviously, just like the Premier League, the WSL's had quite a few of them, and there are a few more this coming weekend as well. And Jonas was bristling quite a bit about the lack of transparency over postponements. Now, the Arsenal versus Brighton game that was due to take place on December 19th was postponed. That was due to COVID cases and injuries in the Brighton squad. Arsenal insist that they were ready to play. They wanted to play the game. It was postponed. And Jonas gave quite a bit more detail on that in the press conference on Friday. He spoke about how he still didn't have any transparency about the particular numbers at Brighton and who had COVID and who was injured. He said that Arsenal were just told they don't have enough players and the game is postponed, and he went into some detail about how he doesn't really think games should be postponed unless it's really extreme and you literally can't put out a team. And he said that's why transparency is so important, because if it is an extreme case, then people should know, at least clubs should know what the actual situation is, what the specifics are of the situation. And he did kind of, he mentioned with the Brighton game, a new date hasn't been announced yet, but it does sound like that will take place at the end of January, because he said, we tried our best to get a team out for that game. We succeeded in doing that. Brighton haven't. Brighton will now be able to sign players, and Arsenal will have 4 players missing due to the Asia Cup. That's the 3 Australian players and Mana Iwabuchi, who will be going away with their countries. In fact, the 3 Australian players already have been. So he suggested that was unfair, and that his team were being punished for following protocols, for making sure that there wasn't any kind of outbreak, and then having the game rearranged to a more favourable time for Brighton than for Arsenal. So that's Jonas's press conference. In terms of the second half of the season, just for a recap, Arsenal are currently top of the WSL by 4 points. So obviously winning the league will be a very, very big priority of theirs, as it always is and as it always has been this season. Now, they have a really crunch line of fixtures coming up at the end of January and the beginning of February, during a time where they will be missing the players I mentioned due to the Asia Cup. So they're away at Manchester City on the 23rd of January. They have Chelsea and they have Manchester United all in a row. And really, the away games at Chelsea and Manchester City will go a long, long way to deciding whether Arsenal can win the title. If they come out of those games relatively unscathed, if they take 4 points, for example, and preferably the 3 points being from Chelsea, because I don't think Manchester City are really in the title conversation this season, certainly not at the moment. But if Arsenal at least don't lose at Chelsea and they keep that 4 point gap as it is, if they can extend it, then they will be hot favourites to win the league. But even if they draw, they're in a good position. And obviously Manchester City away will still be a really difficult game, particularly because they've got players coming back. So that little row of fixtures is going to be really, really crucial in determining whether Arsenal can win the league. They obviously also have the Champions League, the only British team still left in the Champions League. They play Wolfsburg in the quarter-final. Now, that doesn't take place until the end of March, so they don't really have to worry about that at the moment. But obviously that's going to be a huge game as well, huge two-legged tie against a really, really strong Wolfsburg team. Probably not quite the Wolfsburg team of a few years ago, but still very, very strong. Top of the Frauen Bundesliga at the moment, so that will be a really, really tough game as well. Arsenal are also in the Conti Cup quarter-final on January the 19th. They're at home to Manchester United, so they'll want to go all the way in that as well. And they've got the FA Cup fourth round tie at home to London City Lionesses at the end of January. They will go through in that game almost certainly. So, you know, Arsenal fighting very much on four fronts. If we're honest with ourselves, winning the Champions League is probably a step too far for Arsenal at the moment with the quality we've seen firsthand of Barcelona. But getting to the semi-final, I think, would be a really decent achievement there, where Arsenal would probably play Barcelona with the way the draw is. But really the big thing is winning the title. I think that's what Arsenal will want more than anything, and they're in the best position to do that at the moment. In terms of achieving that, I think there are a couple of things I'll be very interested in. It doesn't sound like Leah Williamson will be out for too much longer. Jonas did say today he expects her to be back and to have been playing games by the time the next international break in the middle of February comes around. So hopefully, if she can be back at the end of this month, that will be huge for Arsenal. Arsenal have really missed Leah Williamson because she's one of their best players. She's one of the best defenders in the world. And in terms of a ball-playing defender and her importance in terms of the build-up, difficult to think of many other centre-halves who exert that kind of influence over the team. And Arsenal, they have a lot of centre-halves, but they don't have anyone that does what Leah Williamson does. I don't think many teams do, quite frankly. So getting her back is going to be a big, big thing. And Arsenal really need her, particularly for the Manchester City and Chelsea games that are coming up. She would be a huge loss. I mean, as we saw in the FA Cup final against Chelsea, without her, she'll be a huge loss both defensively and in terms of what she does in build-up. The other thing I'd really like to see from Arsenal is maybe a little bit more centrality in the way they play. Now, Arsenal changed their style earlier this season with the introduction of new coach Jonas Eidevall, and they've gone to a much more counter-pressing style. And I think it's fair to say that caught opponents by surprise in the early part of the season when Arsenal put a really solid run together. This Arsenal team, they go through the flanks quite a bit more. They like getting balls into the box, and that's been successful for them, particularly because it's not something we saw a lot of under Joe Montemurro, but something I think that maybe they've lost in that midfield is just a little bit more centrality, a little bit more threat through the more obvious channels in the middle of the pitch. And personally, I've said this a million times, I think at least one of Jordan Nobbs or Mana Iwabuchi should always be in that team. And for me, fully integrating Jordan Nobbs, who has played, and she's played a lot of minutes, but quite a lot from the bench and quite a lot against the lesser teams. I think fully integrating Jordan Nobbs into that midfield and making her a bona fide starter is a big part of that. And I really like the combination she can make with Mana Iwabuchi coming off that left flank and coming inside as more of a number 10. I think that just gives Arsenal a lot more threat through the middle of the pitch. So that's something I'd like to see. I'd like to see a starting lineup that always has at least one of those players, and quite often two as well. And I think the other thing, just to wrap up, is, you know, I don't think we've seen the best Vivianne Miedema for the first half of the season, which makes total sense. She's played a lot of football. She's kind of been in and out of the side. I think Jonas has been saving her for the second half of this season. We saw that she had a break in kind of October, November time. And you know, I think that made a lot of sense, particularly with the way Arsenal are playing. But I think getting the best from her in the second half of the season is going to be massive as well, particularly again for those that Manchester City game, and that Wolfsburg game as well. It's very difficult to envisage Arsenal having a big season without Vivianne Miedema having a big season. Now, that's not to say she's not having a good season. I'm talking about by Vivianne Miedema's standards, which are incredibly high. And if we get that Viv, if we get world-class Viv, as opposed to, I think we've seen really, really good Viv in the first half of this season for reasons that I think are understandable, then I think Arsenal can win the title. And, obviously it's not just about the form of one player. Arsenal have reduced their dependence on Viv, which I think is a good thing and which I think was needed. But it'd be really great to see maybe some of the rest she's had, not just for the games she's not played, but she's been substituted quite early in games. It'd be lovely to see that pay dividends, to see her have a massive second half of the season. So we'll see anyway, but really to wrap up, I think Arsenal, obviously they'll want to win the Conti Cup, they'll want to try and win the FA Cup, they'll want to go deep in the Champions League, but winning the league title is on. They've still got some hurdles to clear though, and I think that is what we're really looking for in the second half of the season.